Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 1199. Inauspicious Box. Towards the return of Bodhi's Grade 0 sealed artifact or the restoration of its normal condition, the hermit Catlia and Justice Audrey had made a preliminary plan. After all, they weren't confident at killing a demigod in such a short period of time. If not for the fact that Bodhi's had fallen into a trap, having suffered the lethal blows of mental plague, sleeping beauty, and frenzy, and putting him into a crazy and incoherent state, he actually had many opportunities to teleport away without being stopped. In that case, Catlia and Audrey could only wait for Bodhi's to return to a safe house and release furs. Once the Eye of Mystery prying provided them feedback, they could remotely create an opportunity for Miss Magician to summon the historical void projection. At this moment, facing Bodhi's, who was on the path towards losing control with no way to reverse it, and his crazy attempt to fully activate Grade 0 sealed artifact, Catlia and Audrey, one right in the middle of the scene and the other hiding outside the forest, simultaneously took the same action. They took out a translucent dark charm and recited a word in Jotun. Star! This was a teleportation charm. Following the patterns, labels, and symbols of the record on the Lamino's travels, Klein had made a charm himself. Since Sapphira Castle could mobilize the powers of the Marauder pathway, there was no reason not to respond to the pleas of the apprentice domain. As for the materials needed for the charms, be it mysticologist Catlia or traveler furs, the both of them had a certain level of understanding towards it. There was no need for Mr. Fool to teach them. When the two of them teleported away with the triggering of the charm, having plans to come back after a minute or two to confirm the situation, there was a cruel smile on Bodhi's face. His eyes were filled with madness as his actions suddenly stiffened. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't open the third level of the box of the Great Old Ones. It was extremely heavy, as though it was enveloped and suppressed by layers of forces. There was no way to activate it. This made Bodhi's feel like he was attempting to open a new world, not a box. In an instant, he sensed something, and the madness in his eyes disappeared. Extreme astonishment and fear arose in him. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. Wisps of light slid down from Bodhi's body. When they touched the ground, they transformed into insects formed from resplendent starlight. The insects' bodies were bent into a semicircle, forming a magical glow that resembled illusory doors. At this moment, his incomplete mythical creature form suddenly collapsed and disintegrated in an irresistible manner. The two eyeballs of his eyes landed on the ground and were stained with dust. These two eyeballs were frozen with an indescribable look of horror. They were maintained perfectly, completely different from the other parts of his body. A sequence for a secret sorcerer died just like that. Pah! The box of the Great Old Ones, which had a silver-black surface with many gems embedded in it, dropped beside Bodhi's eyes, just like a jewelry box commonly seen in aristocratic families. Above the gray fog, in the ancient palace, Klein heaved a sigh of relief as he lowered the sea god's scepter in his hand in puzzlement. He was just moments from activating the power of Sapphira Castle and using the level of an angel to conjure lightning storm. He wanted to prevent Bodhi's from opening the third level of the box of the Great Old Ones, but the Saint of Secrets' mutually destructive counterattack had failed to succeed. He encountered an unexpected failure from the very beginning. After Zio left the first battlefield, she immediately followed the plan and prayed to Mr. Fool. With this, Klein found an opportunity to enter the world above the gray fog. Through the crimson star corresponding to the Hermit and Justice, he monitored the battle. As she moved to the second battlefield, Audrey found an opportunity to pray, so that Klein could use her crimson star to directly interfere with the real world. This was also the reason why Audrey had arrived at her destination later than the Hermit Catlia. According to what Erode said, the third level of the box of the Great Old Ones contains something very terrifying. I thought that the true creator had given it to him in order to create a terrifying disaster at the critical moment, so as to showcase the true colors of an evil god. Who knew that it couldn't be opened? Klein glanced at the crimson star representing the magician and discovered that it was covered in a layer of black ash. It seemed to have coagulated, making it impossible for him to see the scene inside to confirm Miss Magician's condition. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation, evidence of how high a level and odd the box of the Great Old Ones was. As for Sleeping Beauty, magic, and the spear of Longinus that he saw, he came up with some ideas. After learning of the powers of mystical reenactment at the private gathering, Klein overturned his speculations about the fairy tale magic that Bernadette had. He had originally believed that the Emperor had specially created the stories for his daughter based on the fairy tales on Earth, or that after Bernadette's father passed away, she had deliberately reenacted the fairy tales he had told her about as a way to express her grief. From the looks of it, the answer likely wasn't this. Some of the fairy tales before the first epoch might have been mysterious. This meant that those fairy tales originated from mysterious incidents that had happened in real life. They were spread among the people and gradually became stories. They were recorded down by writers and further embellished. This corresponds to the prophecy regarding the time when the stars are right. Mystery and has never left, and has always been around. It was just that in the Earth era, before the first epoch, they were suppressed by some kind of power or sealed. If that's really the case, some of the legends and stories on Earth can be explained from another angle. It's no wonder there's a spear of Longinus. I wonder if the Chinese fable of the ethereal utopia, Peach Blossom Spring, is involved in mystery. I'll tell Ma'am Hermit later and see if she can create new magic according to this. I wonder if Bernadette became a mysticologist before the Emperor perished. If she did, it's hard to say if these fairy tale magics were created by the Emperor, a sequence one beyonder of the mystery prior pathway, or by Queen Mystic Bernadette. But no matter what, the Emperor should have discovered that these fairy tales are also mysterious in his later years, and also that he could draw power from them. Well, there's no corresponding diary entry from Bernadette. I can't see the Emperor's reaction and his guesses. One of the reasons he insisted on going to the moon is to verify certain things. It's a pity that most of the myths are fake. There's no way to draw on their power. The novels of the Internet era are the same. Klein sighed slightly as he leaned back into his chair and continued paying attention to the battlefield. In the collapsed forest, the hermit Katla and Justice Audrey faced the abnormal changes suffered by Bodhi's and tacitly gave up injecting their spirituality to use the charms. Despite maintaining her dragon transformation state, Audrey was still hiding in the darkness outside the forest, wary of any accidents or official demigods who might have sensed the commotion and come to investigate. As for the hermit Katla, she was pushed to the spot where Bodhi's had died by the wind. She carefully avoided the box of the Great Old Ones. Due to the fact that a scribe could use many powers, a demigod-level sealed artifact would often have extremely negative effects. Apart from the box of the Great Old Ones, Bodhi's only left behind a black pocket which seemed to be part of his robe. Also, there was also the gathered beyonder characteristic, 2 eyeballs, and about 10 worms of star. Most of the worms of star had been destroyed. Considering the horror displayed by the box of the Great Old Ones, as well as the fact that Bodhi's was a high-ranking member of the Aurora Order and could be blessed by a god, Katla didn't rashly pick up the items. She was afraid that an accident would happen, causing the situation to develop negatively. Previously, during the private gatherings, they had communicated with each other on how to handle such situations. That was, if they had the time and opportunity, they would first sacrifice the item to Mr. Fool and then distribute it above the gray fog. After all, many items might bring about unknown dangers if they were to come into contact with items with unknown negative effects. And there was a high probability that Bodhi's had a Grade 0 sealed artifact. Sometimes, merely knowing the existence of a sealed artifact of this level was enough to cause a sudden death. According to what the Star Leonard had said, it was best not to come into contact with such sealed artifacts. It was best not to ask, describe, or pry into it. Only a true high-level existence could suppress them. Without any hesitation, Katla took out silver candles and other ritual items from the various hidden pockets of her purple-patterned black robe. She then set up a simple sacrificial ritual. During this process, she pinched her lips, whistled, and created an invisible servant helper. It took about 10 seconds to set up the altar. After quickly reciting Mr. Fool's honorific name, and using spiritual materials to open the door of sacrifice and bestowment, Katla heaved a sigh of relief. She got the invisible servant to move the box of the great old ones, the black pocket, 2 eyeballs, the gathered beyond her characteristic, and the 9 worms of star over to the altar. With a whoosh, the items flew up and passed through the illusory door. When Katla saw this, she immediately pinched her lower lip with her thumb and index finger, preparing to whistle once again to dispel the invisible servant. But amidst the whistling, the servant remained motionless, as though it had nothing to do with Katla. The hermit Katla's eyelids twitched as she clenched her right hand into a fist and pushed it to her mouth, preparing to use the horn of magic. At that moment, a blazing silvery white appeared out of nowhere at the altar. Layers of bolts of lightning formed a destructive storm that enveloped the invisible servant in the middle. All of this quickly calmed down as the mutated servant was completely destroyed. Katla exhaled and lowered her head, sincerely thanking Mr. Fool. Then, she followed the ritual's ending procedure and packed her belongings. She used the Snow White magic, which was closer to a prophecy technique, to clear the scene of its traces. And at this moment, Audrey had already used the teleportation charm from before and left the scene. Katla looked around, and considering that Mr. Fool might need something more ritualistic, she took out a card from her pocket and threw it in the middle of the collapsing forest. The card was half inserted into the soil, revealing the image of an old man holding a glass lamp and staff as he explored alone, the hermit of the tarot cards.